We're going to deal with another subject this morning, and we're going to talk about young people getting on the property ladder. Coming up later in the programme, hopefully if we have time as well, we're going to talk about the X Factor on Saturday night. So get calling now if you want to let me know, because I missed it on Saturday night. I didn't see it, and I didn't record it either. I can't use my satellite box thingy because of a carpet fitter, but that's enough of that story. Can't record. So the X Factor's back on our TV screens. So let us know, how good was Janet Devlin from Gortin? I missed her. I haven't seen her yet. Do let us know. 08459 555 678, the number to call. But before that, young people getting very downbeat, it would seem, about their chances of buying a property of their own. A new published survey has found 53% of would-be homeowners aged 25 to 34 are pessimistic about their chances of ever buying. We're joined on the line now by the economist and wealth manager Jonathan Davis. Jonathan, are they right to have these levels of pessimism?
I think it's entirely understandable why they do, because, of course, lending is severely restricted now, and it will be for years because the banks are technically insolvent. Also, of course, even though house prices in Northern Ireland have come down markedly in the last few years, still you have to have, £20,000, £30,000 deposit. And of course, young people don't earn the kind of money that they can kind of save that. So I understand why they would feel this way. However, if 53% are not expecting to be able to buy in the future, then maybe that means that 47% are. And I would tend to go with the 47% because house prices are not going to rise from here at this point. They're still falling as far as I'm concerned. They're still going to continue falling, which means that in due course, the youngsters of today who will be less young a few years down the line will have to raise a smaller deposit and take on a smaller loan. That's my take on it. And I think people need to stop extrapolating from the past into the future, because trends do change.
Are young people, do you think, or do the figures suggest, or are they looking at all the other financial pressures that are out there at the moment, those who are maybe going to be leaving university with debt up to their ears in terms of loans and tuition fees? And are they putting the whole idea of getting on the property ladder a little bit further down the line than maybe what they would have done 5-10 years ago?
Sure. Can I just ask you, please, to stop using... Everyone in the media uses the phrase the property ladder. Particularly in Northern Ireland, it's anything but a ladder. It's a snake.
Well, a lot of people are thinking maybe that the ladder's been pulled up behind them.
Yes, well, indeed. And certainly with the likes of tuition fees, debt, I mean, certainly from next year, to do a 3-year degree is basically going to cost £45,000 tuition and living costs. Frankly, I think it's more or less a con unless you're in a top university and you're actually studying for a career where there's going to be some serious money to be made. So, education just of itself is probably no use. And certainly, if you've got yourself that big debt and you've got low earnings, well, I wonder why you took the debt in the first place, because financially it's pretty imprudent. But yes, of course, there are going to continue, I'm afraid to say, to be great problems in the economy. However, again, what I say is, for those who will be in work, that will be a good thing in one sense, because they'll find that house prices are lower, which means that they'll have to raise a smaller deposit, which means that they will be able to buy property. But I'd like to just remind you that alternatives to buying, renting is perfectly sensible, particularly when prices are falling.
That's what I was going to say to you, because
the only thing to do is buy property.
That's what I was going to say to you. I remember listening to a discussion about this at one point, and the point was made that the idea of buying a property, or this desire that I must go and buy a house or buy an apartment or buy something, is very much sort of confined to sort of Britain / Ireland. On the continent, it's not really on the agenda for young people.
Yeah, that's a myth, Joel, which is perpetuated by certain parts of the media, not suggesting you.
No.
But it's a total myth.
So I fell for the myth then.
in much of Europe, there is a higher percentage owner occupation than the United Kingdom. Fact. Only in Germany, literally only in Germany, do they have a rental philosophy. And the only reason why they have that is because they haven't in the last 10 years had a house price bubble. Anywhere in the world where you have asset price bubbles, whether it's houses or gold or shares, where everyone dives in. Where there isn't a bubble, people stay away. And I'll tell you, because prices are falling, particularly in Northern Ireland and indeed in many parts of the UK, and soon it'll be all over the UK, soon people will start to realise that the first thing they don't have to think of when they wake up in the morning is, oh, can I buy a property? On the contrary, there are lots of alternatives to taking out a vast debt to, quote, buy, unquote, a property, because, of course, you're not buying. If you're borrowing 80 or 90% of a property, you're sharing it in effect with the bank. So there are lots of alternatives, and certainly people's views of property will change over time as property no longer gives the increases, the wealth creation, quote unquote, that it has given for decades.
Okay.
The world is changing, and people will change with the world. And
I'll try not to fall for those myths anymore, Jonathan, if I hear them on discussions. I'll come to you instead. Thanks.
Well, you're both welcome to it.
Thanks, John. Thanks for taking the call this morning. See, you should always listen to Jonathan instead of listening to those myths that are in other programmes.